Preface. The story In His Steps was written in 1896 and read one chapter at a time to my Sunday evening congregation. It was first published in the Advance, Chicago, in the fall of that year, and afterward published in book form in 1897. The story Jesus Is Here is supposed to begin 17 years after the close of In His Steps. It continues the main characters of In His Steps, with the addition of a few others. It was first published as a serial in the Christian Herald, beginning in 1913. It has not been my purpose to describe what is called the second coming of Christ, but to picture another appearance of Jesus and describe his action in a modern world. The world today is far different from the world into which the historical Jesus was born. It is so different that entirely new problems relating to the human conduct face the modern Christian. It has seemed to me that it was a fair and reverent question to ask what would be the attitude of Jesus as he faced the complex conditions of modern society. It has also seemed to be a fair thing to try to bring back to our minds the great fact that Jesus was a very real, everyday person. The lapse of time since he was here has removed him in thought with very many people from the everyday life, and very many people have forgotten, or at least do not remember, that when he was on earth, he worked and ate and slept and grew tired just like any human being. He moved about among people just like any average man. He was not a recluse or a solitary, but he loved the multitude, and above all, he was perfectly sympathetic with all sorts and conditions of people. No one ever lived who was more socially democratic than Jesus, and it is reverent to say no one enjoyed life more than he did. I have received hundreds of letters from people, some of whom have severely condemned this story on the grounds that it is not reverent to bring Jesus into common human relations, that it takes away from his character as the Redeemer of the world. Many of these letters declare the story to be blasphemous, and have threatened the author if he ever dare publish the story in book form. On the other hand, the author wishes to express his appreciation of the hundreds of letters received from other people who have written him to express their thankfulness for the help that the story has given them in their Christian life. It is impossible for him to reply to all these letters individually. If any of the writers happen to see this, will they kindly take it as a reply on the author's part, thanking them for their kindness and expressing in part his appreciation of their understanding of his purpose in writing the story? The world needs to know Jesus as a real person, one who walks the earth and is a daily lover of us all. That is the main purpose of this story, to bring back to the thought of the modern world the living personality of the living Christ. Charles M. Sheldon, Topeka, Kansas, 1914. Chapter 1. 15 years had gone by since the First Church in Raymond had adopted the motto, "What would Jesus do?" The pledge, as carried out by the members who had taken it, had revolutionized the church. Henry Maxwell still continued as the pastor. Many of the members of the church had been much disturbed by the rule Mr. Maxwell had introduced into the lives of the members, but a majority had sustained him, and he had continued to grow in the respect and affection of his large and growing congregation, and in the respect of the businessmen and citizens of Raymond. Mr. and Mrs. Maxwell were talking early one Friday evening about a gathering of old friends who were coming to the parsonage that night. It was the anniversary of the day when the First Church had taken the pledge to try to do as Jesus would do, and following a custom of several years, a dozen or more of the original company that had taken the pledge then were coming in after supper to talk over the old and new phases of their discipleship. This evening, Mr. Maxwell seemed strangely restless. He had gone over the list of those who were expected, and had commented on different ones, as his wife was asking questions. All the time he was talking, Mr. Maxwell paced back and forth between the large west window of the sitting room and the library, several times pausing to look with deepening and what seemed odd curiosity out of the window into the waning twilight. "Will Rollin be able to come tonight?" Mrs. Maxwell had asked. "I'm afraid not. He has been asked to go to Chicago and advise with the commercial club in regard to the social evil and take part in the eugenics congress. I think he planned to start this afternoon, but Rachel will come with Virginia." "Doesn't it seem like a miracle to think of Rollin Page becoming an authority on these great social service questions?" Mrs. Maxwell said, after another pause during which Mr. Maxwell had again stopped to gaze with a look of intense feeling through the big west window. "It is a miracle. Mary, why should we take for granted that miracles are unnatural or uncommon, or that they belong to any special age of the world? Why may we not expect miracles in our own time? We need them, and Rollin is such a miracle. Nothing but a miraculous influence changed Rollin Page from a careless, selfish, worldly club man into a devout, earnest, religious lover of men, a new man all over himself, no more like the old Rollin than white is like black. Why, of course, if a change in a life like that is really a miracle, we have plenty of evidence that miracles still occur. But we don't generally call that a miracle, do we? But what else can we call it? And did not the Master himself say that his disciples would do even greater works than he himself did? And do you know, Mary, I find myself of late longing, with a feeling I cannot express or explain, for a superhuman vision, for a real manifestation of the divine presence that somehow I cannot avoid feeling will be given to Christian disciples of this age. Oh, I long so for a real, actual flesh-and-blood glimpse of Jesus. I feel at times as if I must see him face to face. He said to his disciples, "I am with you always, even to the end of the age." If he is really in the world, why may we not see him, really see him sometime? I must see him. My heart cries out for him. I need him. Not necessarily to strengthen my faith, but to give him in person some expression of my love for him. And of late I keep wondering what Jesus would do and say in the world where we live. It is so different from the world in which he lived. I would give anything if I could see him and hear him and ask him questions. And I have wondered so often of late. Henry Maxwell paused and looked over at his wife with deep thoughtfulness. I've wondered if it might be possible somehow for him to live on this earth again. It has been so long since he was here, and the world needs him so much again. It has fought and sinned and suffered and loved and endured all through these centuries, doing wondrous things in his name and for his sake. Common people in one age of the world saw and felt and heard Jesus. Why should it not be possible for common people of another age to have the same glory shine around them? Why should not God give his Son to the world again, and refresh its courage and strengthen its faith by a glimpse of him who once came so long ago? She rose and came over to him. He had paused again in front of the big window, and together husband and wife stood there, Mrs. Maxwell's hand on his arm, an anxious, troubled look on her face, wondering at the thought that seemed to be troubling her husband. But before she could speak, he had started forward and pointed eagerly out toward the farthest distance. There! It is out there again! That strange light! See, Mary, how it fills